The afternoon sun hung over the city like a watchful eye, warm but distant, casting long shadows across the polished floors of the prestigious car dealership. People walked quietly between the glossy vehicles. Machines so expensive, they almost looked like sculptures rather than cars meant for real roads. The air smelled faintly of leather, polish, and something else. Money. The kind of money that made people behave differently. Inside, Marcus Daniels stepped through the glass doors, letting them close softly behind him. He wasn't dressed like someone who came to buy a luxury car. At least, not in the eyes of those who judged by surface. A simple hoodie, clean jeans, quiet demeanor. But his eyes carried something deeper, calm confidence, the kind built through years of discipline, growth, and fighting battles no one else knew about. He walked slowly, looking around, admiring the cars without rushing. He wasn't here to impress anyone. He was here because he felt he had earned the right to stand in this place, without needing to prove himself. But the moment he entered, he could feel it, the shift in the air. Conversations lowered. Two security officers, positioned near the back, exchanged glances, their shoulders tightening slightly. A woman in a navy blue suit, sharp in posture and sharper in attitude, turned her head sharply toward him. Her gaze narrowed, like she was studying a threat. Marcus felt the eyes on him, but he kept his pace steady. He had been in far more hostile places than a clean, overpriced showroom. Behind the front desk, the woman stepped away from her computer and approached him with heels clicking in rhythmic judgment. "Can I help you?" she asked. But it didn't sound like an offer. It sounded like a challenge. She looked him up and down, as if she needed to confirm he didn't belong. Marcus smiled politely, just looking around. "Looking?" she repeated, eyebrows raised. "At these cars?" There it was, the tone, the kind that didn't need cursing to be offensive. The kind that didn't need volume to cut deep. Marcus remained steady. "Yes, that's why people come here, right?" She didn't appreciate the calmness in his voice. She didn't appreciate the confidence he didn't try to hide. Instead, she shifted slightly to block his path as if he needed permission to walk. "Sir, these cars start at over $100,000, she said, emphasizing each word like numbers were bullets she expected him to dodge. Most people who look at them usually schedule an appointment or come prepared. Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Prepared how?" "Financially," she said bluntly. He let out a breath, not annoyed, but disappointed. "You don't even know me." "I don't have to," she snapped. "I can tell." Marcus took a moment to look around the dealership again, then back at her. He wasn't angry, just stunned that in this world, after everything he'd worked for, after all he'd achieved, people still had the audacity to treat him like a problem before they even learned his name. But he wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing frustration. Calm was his advantage. Near the back, the two security officers shifted again, now openly watching, waiting for the slightest excuse to step forward. They didn't leave their posts, but their stance changed. Shoulders straight, eyes locked, hands near their belts. The woman noticed Marcus glance toward them and smirked a little. "That's standard protocol," she said coldly. "For situations like this." He understood exactly what she meant. Marcus took a small step forward, not aggressive, simply refusing to shrink back. Situations like what? She hesitated, not because she didn't know what she wanted to say, but because she knew she couldn't say it out loud without revealing her own prejudice. So she masked it behind a fake smile. "We have very high security expectations here. We're selective with who we give access to." "Selective?" Marcus repeated. "Is that the word we're using today?" She crossed her arms, annoyed that he wouldn't let her lead the conversation. "Sir, I'm simply protecting the dealership from unnecessary disruptions." Marcus let out a soft laugh through his nose. "A man walking around is a disruption?" Her jaw tightened. "A man who clearly isn't here to buy is wasting our time." He glanced at the nearby vehicles, sleek, shiny, untouched by judgment. "You don't know what I'm here for. You don't know what I can afford." She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if she wanted to deliver a private threat. "Look at you," she whispered. "You think I'm stupid? Why else would you dress like that? Who comes to a dealership like this, looking like that?" Marcus's calm cracked only slightly. Not from anger, but from sadness. Sad that people like her still existed. Sad that people like him still had to deal with them. But he recovered quickly, lifting his chin. Maybe people come here looking like this because they can. Before she could respond, a man in a tailored suit, another employee, approached from behind her. "Rita," he said quietly, "is everything okay?" "It will be in a moment," she snapped, without looking at him. "I'm handling it." Marcus stepped aside slightly. "You don't need to handle me." Rita ignored him and turned to the new staff member. "Go stand near the entrance," she commanded. "We might need to escort him out." Marcus's heart tightened, not from fear, but from the weight of how absurd the situation was. All he did was walk into a building. All he did was exist. The two security officers at the back finally took a few steps forward, now closer, watching every move. Their tense posture filled the air with potential conflict. Rita's voice sharpened. "Sir, I'm giving you one chance to leave on your own before we remove you." Marcus blinked slowly. "Remove me? For what?" "You are causing a disturbance," she said. "For standing here?" he asked, stunned. "Yes," she said confidently, folding her arms as if this was her moment of victory. "Now either you walk out, or we escort you out." Marcus stood still, silent, calm. Something in his expression shifted. Not anger, not fear, but a kind of strength that unsettled her. A strength of someone who knew he had nothing to prove and everything to expose. The security officers tensed, waiting. Rita lifted her chin proudly, certain she had all the power. Then Marcus reached into his pocket. Slowly, carefully, every officer's hand darted to their belt. Rita stepped back instinctively, but Marcus didn't pull out anything dangerous, just a simple leather wallet. A wallet with something inside that would change the entire room. He held it firmly in his hand, but didn't open it yet. Instead, he looked directly into Rita's eyes as the tension thickened like fog. "Are you sure," he asked quietly, "that you want me to leave before you see who I am?" Her confident smirk flickered for the first time. Something in Marcus's calmness scared her more than anything else that had happened so far. The officers waited. The room froze. And Marcus slowly lifted his wallet just enough for her to see the edge of an ID card. Not yet revealed. Not yet explained. But powerful enough to make her pulse skip. The truth was about to shift the entire atmosphere of that dealership. And Rita had no idea what was coming. Rita stared at the wallet like it was a threat all by itself. For a split second, the dealership fell completely silent. No distant chatter, no clicking heels, just the faint hum of air conditioning and the quiet drum of Marcus's steady heartbeat in his ears. One of the security officers shifted. "Ma'am?" he asked carefully. She lifted her hand to stop him, never taking her eyes off Marcus. She didn't like this. She didn't like that the man she'd already decided was a problem was suddenly standing there, so calm, so controlled, like he knew something she didn't. "What is that supposed to mean?" she demanded. "Who exactly are you?" Marcus kept his voice soft. "You wanted me gone without asking that question. That's the problem." Her cheeks flushed, a flash of embarrassment under her makeup. "Don't play games with me. Show me your ID or leave." Marcus held her gaze for a long moment. Then, without any rush, he opened the wallet and flipped it toward her so she could see. Her eyes landed on the card. At first, she squinted, expecting some cheap trick. Maybe a fake badge, maybe some printed nonsense. But it wasn't. Her breath hitched. On that card was his full name, his photo. A seal she recognized from news reports and official press conferences. Not local, not state, federal. The bold letters beneath his picture made her swallow hard. She read them out loud without meaning to. Regional Special Investigator. Marcus tilted the wallet just a little more. With authority to audit and investigate businesses that have a history of or complaints about discriminatory behavior. Rita's face drained of color so fast it almost looked like someone turned down her saturation. The security officers' bodies instantly relaxed, confusion flickering across their faces. One of them muttered under his breath, "Oh no." Marcus closed the wallet and slid it back into his pocket. He wasn't smiling. There was nothing fun about this. "You wanted to know who I am," he said quietly. "Now you do." Rita opened her mouth, but no sound came out. All that confidence she had earlier, all that sharp coldness in her tone, it all crumbled in an instant. That doesn't make sense," she stammered. Why would someone like you walk into a dealership like this?" Marcus finished for her. "In a hoodie. In jeans." She stared, caught. "Because I'm a person," he said calmly. "Because I live in this city. Because I buy cars, just like any other adult with a job. I don't need a uniform to exist in public." Her eyes darted to the officers, then the other staff members, hoping someone would step in and rescue her. No one moved. The man from earlier, the one she had ordered to stand by the entrance, shifted uncomfortably. He'd seen everything. Marcus took a step closer, not threatening, just undeniable. "I was assigned here," he continued, voice low but steady. "There have been complaints, patterns, videos shared, stories people tell when they think no one in power is listening. They say certain customers get treated differently when they walk through these doors." He looked around. Turns out they were right. Rita tried to pull herself together. You can't just come in here and pretend." "I didn't pretend," Marcus interrupted. "I gave you the chance to treat me like any other customer. You made the choice to treat me like a problem." The room seemed to shrink around her. From the corner of his eye, Marcus noticed a couple near the back pretending to look at a car. But their eyes were locked on the confrontation. Another employee watched from behind a desk, face pale. "Sir," one of the security officers finally spoke up, hands open in a peaceful gesture. "We didn't know. We were just doing our jobs." "No," Marcus replied calmly, turning his head just enough to look at him. "You were doing what you were told. There's a difference." The officer swallowed, looking down. Rita tried to recover some control. "This is completely unnecessary. If you had just mentioned who you were." Marcus's jaw tightened. "So, I have to announce my title just to get basic respect?" he asked. "Do you hear yourself?" Her mouth snapped shut. He let the question hang there, heavy and humiliating. "I moved to this city to start fresh," he said, more to the room than to her. "I came in here quietly. No cameras, no press, no warning. I wanted to see how people are treated when no one's watching. He glanced at Rita again. Now I've seen it. She looked like she might crumble, but pride refused to let her. You can't ruin our dealership over one misunderstanding. Marcus sighed softly. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You decided who I was before you heard my name. That's not confusion. That's bias. The words cut sharper than any insult. He turned away from her and looked at the nearest security officer, the calmer one, the one who'd seemed uncomfortable from the beginning. What's your name? Marcus asked. Collins, the man replied quietly. Evan Collins. Officer Collins, Marcus said. When I walked in, did you see me doing anything suspicious? Collins shook his head immediately. No, sir. Did I threaten anyone, raise my voice, or act in a way that required intervention? No, sir. Then why did you step forward when she called you? Marcus asked gently. Collins looked torn. Because she's management, and we're expected to back management decisions. Marcus nodded slowly. Even when those decisions are wrong? Collins hesitated. Rita cut in. Now, wait a second. He told me stuff like this happens. I didn't think I'd be part of it. You were today, Marcus replied, but you don't have to be tomorrow. The words sank in. Collins nodded slowly. Marcus straightened, his presence filling the space more than any uniform could. He looked back at Rita. Here's what's going to happen, he said. The dealership staff tensed, waiting. I'm going to finish looking at these cars, he continued. I'll talk to any salesperson who's willing to treat me like a human being. I might buy one. I might not. That's my decision. Rita blinked, confused. You still want to shop here? I want to see, he said simply. I want to see how this place behaves after you realize who walked in. Her throat bobbed. And after that, Marcus added calmly, I'll file my report, with details, with timestamps, with the names of everyone involved, not just yours. The security officers shifted. The staff members near the back looked like they wanted to vanish. Rita whispered, You're going to destroy my career. Marcus shook his head. No, I'm not destroying anything. I'm just telling the truth. Your own choices did the rest. Her eyes glistened. For the first time, something like fear, not anger, washed over her face. He turned and began to walk toward the closest car, running his hand lightly over the smooth paint. A young salesman, who had been frozen near the corner, took a hesitant step forward. Sir? The salesman said nervously. Can I actually help you? For real? Marcus looked up at him and smiled. A small, tired, genuine smile. Yeah, he said. You can. The salesman swallowed. This model here, it has a hybrid engine, great mileage, smooth ride. We can sit inside if you'd like. Marcus nodded and walked around to the driver's side. Behind them, Rita remained motionless, watching as the authority she thought she had shrank into nothing. The officers slowly moved back to their original positions, no longer on alert, just quiet, reflecting. Marcus paused before getting into the car and glanced back one more time. Their eyes met. No gloating, no satisfaction, water edge. This isn't over. Whatever she thought this day would be, it wouldn't end the way she expected. Because soon enough, people far above her position would see the report. They would see the footage. They would read how she treated a man before she knew his name. And when that day came, she would remember this moment. The moment she could have chosen decency, but chose arrogance instead. Marcus settled into the driver's seat, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. The engine hadn't even started, but everyone knew. Something much bigger than a car sale had just been set in motion. If they thought this was just about one visit, one man, one day, they were wrong. It was about the entire way they saw people. And Marcus was not going to let that go. The young salesman, guiding Marcus around the car, tried his best to stay composed. But Marcus could see the nerves in the way his hands hovered too carefully over the vehicle's features, like he didn't want to risk doing anything wrong. The kid wasn't guilty of anything, just scared of being associated with what just happened. Marcus didn't blame him. They sat inside the car. The interior smelled like new leather and quiet ambition. The salesman introduced himself as Tyler, barely older than 22, polite, soft-spoken, and clearly uncomfortable with conflict. Tyler cleared his throat. "Sir, if you want, I can show you the financing options, or..." Marcus raised a hand gently. "Relax, I'm just looking." Tyler exhaled in relief and nodded. "Of course, sorry, it's just, things got tense." "Tense is an understatement," Marcus said, giving him a reassuring look. "But none of that was your fault." Tyler swallowed and nodded again. Outside the car, Marcus could see movement. Fast, worried movement. A man in a charcoal suit came through the office doors, expression tight. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't calm. He was storming. The general manager. The one who always appears when something threatens a dealership's reputation. The one who gets paid to contain fires, but had no idea this one had already jumped the walls. He cut across the room like a blade, eyes locked on Rita. Marcus watched quietly as he approached her, his voice hushed, but sharp enough to slice the air. Rita's posture shrank, her arms crossing defensively as the manager's gestures grew more animated. Tyler noticed. "That's Mr. Grant, he's the general manager." Marcus didn't respond. He kept watching. Rita pointed at Marcus, whisper shouting something with too much desperation. Mr. Grant followed her finger, and his gaze landed on Marcus inside the car. Their eyes met. Mr. Grant's face changed instantly, not into anger or authority, into panic. He turned back to Rita and spoke with even more urgency. She tried to defend herself, but he cut her off with a final, stern gesture. Rita stepped back like she'd been hit. Marcus could almost read Mr. Grant's thoughts from across the room. What did you do? Who did you do it to? And why did it have to happen today? Tyler shifted. Looks like he's, not happy. Marcus gave another calm nod. He shouldn't be. The dealership was no longer buzzing in its usual rhythm. Everyone was whispering. Everyone was glancing at Marcus. Everyone was replaying in their minds the moment Rita told the security officers to escort him out. The atmosphere had shifted from tension to fear. The kind of fear that comes from knowing a mistake has already left the building and is walking toward consequences. Suddenly, Mr. Grant hurried toward the car, forcing a smile that was too wide, too quick, too rehearsed. He tapped lightly on the driver's side window. Sir, may I speak with you for a moment?" Marcus stepped out of the car calmly. Tyler moved aside, respectfully. "Mr. Grant asked carefully. "Daniels," Marcus said. "Marcus Daniels. Yes, Mr. Daniels. Well, first, I want to deeply apologize. What you experienced is absolutely not how we operate. That behavior was unacceptable, unprofessional, and entirely against company policy." Marcus studied him. "Is that so?" "Yes, absolutely," Grant said quickly. "I assure you, this was a misunderstanding." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A misunderstanding?" Grant hesitated. "Yes, well, a lapse in judgment." "From who?" Marcus asked. Grant froze. Rita stared from across the room, her face flushing again, her jaw trembling with panic She could no longer hide. Grant swallowed. Rita's actions do not reflect our dealership's values. Interesting, Marcus said quietly. Because she seemed very confident while discriminating against me. Grant blinked rapidly. I understand how it must have looked, but I promise, we will handle this internally. We value every customer regardless of appearance, Marcus finished. Grant's face went pale. No, of course not. That's not what I meant. But that's what happened, Marcus said calmly, not raising his voice. In front of your employees, in front of your security officers, and in front of multiple potential customers. Grant didn't know where to look. Tyler watched silently from behind, guilt in his eyes, even though he wasn't part of the problem. Collins, the security officer from earlier, stood quietly in the background, listening. Marcus stepped a little closer to Grant. I came here to look at cars, Marcus said, not to be profiled. Grant nodded frantically. I understand, truly, I do, and I want to make this right. Marcus raised an eyebrow. How? Grant's mind raced. Well, we could offer you a discounted rate, or a premium service package. We can. Money won't fix this, Marcus interrupted softly. Grant stopped talking. Tyler shifted again. Uncomfortable. Rita clenched her jaw and looked away, unable to watch. This isn't about free upgrades, Marcus continued. This is about how people are treated when no one important is watching. Grant flinched. The truth hit him harder than any accusation. And, Marcus added, about the fact that I didn't have to reveal who I was for you to take this seriously. Grant's eyes widened. Marcus took out his wallet again, slowly, and opened it so Grant could see the ID. Grant nearly stumbled backward. Oh my. Oh, sir, I had no idea. You weren't supposed to, Marcus said. That's the point. Grant looked around, nervously. Sir, we deeply respect federal oversight. Whatever you need, we'll do it. Anything at all. Marcus's voice softened, but not in a forgiving way. In a way that demanded accountability. What I need, he said, is honesty, transparency, a dealership that treats every customer like they matter. Grant nodded rapidly. Yes, of course, absolutely. Rita took a shaky step forward. Mr. Grant, I didn't know who he was. I was just... That's exactly the problem. Marcus said to her without turning. You thought you needed to know who I was to treat me with respect. She froze. Grant let out a breath. Sir, I hope you won't file anything formal. If you give us a chance, we will correct this. Immediately. Marcus sighed softly. Mr. Grant, he said, I'm not here to ruin anyone, but I won't ignore what happened. Grant nodded weakly. Understood. Marcus stepped back, leaning against the car he'd been inspecting earlier. Right now, he continued, I'm giving you the chance to show me what your dealership really stands for. Grant swallowed. We'll do better, sir, starting now. He motioned toward Tyler. Tyler, assist Mr. Daniels with anything he needs. Full transparency, full respect. Yes, sir, Tyler said quickly. Rita opened her mouth, but Grant raised a hand sharply. Ms. Rita, we will be speaking privately, afterward. Rita looked like the floor might collapse beneath her. Marcus turned to Tyler, offering a small nod. Shall we continue? Tyler nodded eagerly. Yes, sir. What would you like to see next? Marcus walked around the car again, but inside the dealership, the mood had changed from tense to shaken. Everyone knew something big was unfolding. And Marcus knew something else. This wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of consequences. Tyler led Marcus toward another section of the dealership, doing his best to treat him with professional respect. But the tension from the earlier confrontation hung heavy in the air, like smoke after a fire. Every employee they passed straightened up, eyes wide, pretending to be busy, but clearly watching him. From the corner of his eye, Marcus could see the quiet panic spreading. Phones vibrated on desks. Managers whispered in doorways. One person even slipped into a back office, as if to report something immediately. Marcus didn't rush Tyler. He walked calmly, letting the room's anxiety reveal its true nature. They stopped at a sleek black SUV. Tyler opened the door for him. This one has top safety ratings, fully loaded. A sharp voice cut across the room. Mr. Daniels. Marcus didn't have to turn to know who it was. Rita. But her tone was different now. No arrogance, no edge. Just a strained attempt at politeness wrapped in fear. He turned slowly. Rita approached, shoulders stiff, a stack of papers in her hands. Her smile was forced, so forced it hurt to look at. I wanted to apologize again, she said, and I also wanted to give you some information about our policies. You know, to be clear. Marcus didn't say anything. She held out the papers toward him, but her hands trembled just a little. Here's our standard customer conduct form. It explains. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. He knew this was nonsense. Marcus didn't take the papers. Is this supposed to justify what happened earlier? He asked quietly. Rita blinked. No, not justify. Just explain. Marcus eyed her calmly. Explain what? She forced a weak smile. Well, we have to make sure customers don't misunderstand our intentions. We thought maybe you felt unsafe? She swallowed. You made me feel watched the moment I stepped inside, Marcus said. Before I said anything. Before I touched anything. Before I looked at anything. He stepped closer. Not threatening, just undeniable. You didn't act out of policy, he continued. You acted out of assumption. Rita's throat tightened. I was just trying to protect the dealership. From what? Marcus asked. A long silence followed. Rita had no answer. Instead, she glanced nervously at the back office, where Mr. Grant was watching through the glass window, pretending to shuffle papers, but clearly eavesdropping. Marcus continued. If you want to apologize, apologize honestly, not with paperwork. Rita's eyes glistened slightly. Anger or guilt, he couldn't tell. I made a mistake, she said stiffly. A big one. Marcus nodded. And? She blinked. What do you want me to say? The truth, he said. Not the version that protects you. The real one. Rita clenched her jaw. Fine, I misjudged you. You misjudged what you saw, Marcus corrected. Not me. Her lips tightened, but she didn't argue. Marcus let the moment breathe. He wasn't trying to humiliate her. He wasn't trying to win. He just wanted accountability. Before he could speak again, Mr. Grant rushed over, his face tight. Rita, he snapped quietly, I asked you to stay in the office. She stiffened. I just wanted to fix things. You fixed enough, Grant hissed. Marcus looked at both of them, calmly. Let her talk. Grant hesitated, then reluctantly stepped back. Rita took a breath. Mr. Daniels, I didn't know who you were. That was part of the problem, I guess. That is the problem, he said. Respect shouldn't depend on my job title. She nodded stiffly. You're right. And if I hadn't shown my ID, Marcus asked, would you still be apologizing? Her silence revealed everything. Grant cleared his throat. Mr. Daniels, please let me handle this. Rita's decisions were out of line. And I want you to know the dealership does not support that behavior. Marcus didn't look away from Rita. You can handle her later. But I want to know something first. He turned toward Grant. Is this the first complaint you've gotten about her? Grant froze. Rita's eyes widened. Sir, don't lie, Marcus said quietly. Grant swallowed hard. There have been a few concerns raised in the past. Concerns, Marcus repeated, or documented reports? Grant looked like someone had punched him. His silence was all the confirmation needed. Marcus nodded slowly. So this isn't new. Rita looked betrayed. You told me those were closed cases. We are not discussing that, Grant whispered harshly. Not here. Marcus raised his eyebrows. Closed cases? Grant glared at Rita. Not another word. But it was too late. The truth had slipped through. Marcus looked at Tyler. Tyler, you ever see this kind of behavior here before? Tyler hesitated, eyes darting between Grant and Rita. Marcus lowered his voice. I'm asking you honestly, not as an investigator, as a customer. Tyler took a deep breath. Yes, he said quietly. I've seen it before. Rita spun around. You little... Enough, Marcus said sharply. The room went dead quiet. Grant looked like the walls were closing in. Marcus stepped back and exhaled slowly. You've had complaints before. You ignored them. Now you're scrambling because the consequences finally walked through your door. Grant looked desperate. Sir, please, we can settle this. We can make things right. I don't want a settlement, Marcus said firmly. I want change. Grant blinked rapidly. Change? Yes, Marcus said softly. Because this isn't just about me. It's about the people who walked in before me and were treated the same way, but didn't have an ID to protect them. Tyler looked down, ashamed. Collins, the security officer, stepped forward slightly. Sir, if I may. Marcus nodded. Collins cleared his throat. I've worked here for years. I've seen things. A lot of us have. But no one ever called it out. No one with authority ever listened. Marcus looked at him with respect. Collins continued. Maybe you're the first person they can't ignore. The weight of those words settled over the entire showroom. Rita looked shaken. Grant looked cornered. Tyler looked relieved. Someone finally said it. Marcus turned back toward Grant. When I file my report, he said carefully, I won't be focusing on one incident. I'll be focusing on a pattern, a culture. Grant's face strained of color. But, Marcus added, you still have time to tell the truth before I do. Grant swallowed. What do you want from me? Marcus didn't hesitate. Accountability, transparency, and corrective action that's real, not performative. Grant nodded slowly, almost gratefully. I'll do whatever it takes. Marcus glanced at Rita. She looked like someone standing on a cliff edge. Everyone deserves a chance to change, he said softly, including her. But only if she chooses it, not because she got caught. Rita lowered her eyes. The room exhaled with tension. Tyler stepped forward gently. Mr. Daniels, would you still like to test drive the SUV? Marcus gave a small smile. Yes. Let's do that. And as he walked toward the doors with Tyler, everyone in the dealership watched with a new kind of silence. Not fear of Marcus, but fear of the truth he was about to expose, and respect for the man who demanded it without ever raising his voice. The engine purred beneath his hands as the SUV glided onto the main road, smooth and responsive. The city passed by in clean lines of light and asphalt, but Marcus's mind wasn't really on the car. He listened to the sound of the engine, felt the steering, tested the brakes, but his focus was split between the road and everything he'd just witnessed back in the showroom. Tyler sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in his lap, glancing at Marcus every few seconds like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure if he should. You're quiet, Marcus said, eyes still on the road. Tyler let out a nervous laugh. Just thinking. About what? About how I still have a job, Tyler admitted, and how amazed I am that you're not yelling, honestly. Marcus gave a small, tired smile. Yelling doesn't change people. It just makes them defensive. Tyler nodded slowly. Guess that's true. But still, most people would have gone viral with what happened back there. Marcus changed lanes carefully. I'm not interested in going viral. I'm interested in what happens after the cameras are gone. Tyler looked out the window, thinking about that. Back at the dealership, behind glass walls and closed doors, a different kind of conversation was happening. One Marcus knew was coming. He had seen it before in other cases, other businesses, other systems. When people in power feel threatened, they don't reach for the truth. They reach for control. And that's exactly what Mr. Grant and Rita were doing. In the small conference room, near the manager's office, Grant had pulled the blinds closed. Papers were scattered across the table, and Rita stood rigid near the corner, arms crossed, eyes puffy, but still burning with wounded pride. This is bad, Grant muttered, pacing. This is really bad. You're acting like this is all my fault, Rita snapped. He came in here looking like trouble. Grant stopped. Say that again, he said. He looked like trouble, she repeated, slower this time. Grant clenched his jaw. You know how that sounds, right? It doesn't matter how it sounds, she said. He baited me. He didn't tell us who he was on purpose. He wanted this to happen. Grant stared at her in disbelief. You think he forced you to discriminate against him? Rita exhaled sharply. I think he walked in here to test us, to trap us. Grant rubbed his temples. Rita, he's an investigator. That's literally his job. She threw up her hands. So what? Now he's going to destroy us because of one interaction? Grant shook his head. It's not just one interaction. You heard what he said. There were complaints before. HR has those records. They were nothing, Rita insisted. Exaggerations, customers who didn't like being told no. Grant didn't answer. He knew better. He'd seen the emails, the notes from HR, the quiet warnings, the recommendations to provide training that were never followed. Now all those ignored warnings had a face, a badge, a name. And that name was sitting in one of their vehicles, deciding how much grace to show them. Rita leaned forward. We have to protect ourselves. And how do you suggest we do that? Grant asked. She picked up a pen and tapped it against the table. We document everything. We write that he escalated things, that he was aggressive, that security was called to keep the peace, that we followed procedure until we realized who he was. Grant stared at her. So you want to lie? We're not lying, she said quickly. We're reframing. We can say it was a miscommunication, that he misunderstood protocol, that we were only being cautious. Grant's face hardened. You grabbed security as if he was about to rob us. You ordered him out in front of customers. You didn't miscommunicate. You made a judgment call based on how he looked. So what? She shot back. I'm the bad guy now? He didn't answer. And what about him? She continued. You're acting like he's some perfect saint. He could ruin us. Doesn't that bother you? Grant walked to the window and looked out at the lot. The SUV carrying Marcus was turning back into the driveway. You're not listening, he said quietly. He doesn't have to ruin us. We did that ourselves. Rita stepped closer. If we let him write whatever he wants, we're done. The dealership, our reputation, my career. He gave us a chance, Grant replied. He came in alone. No film crew, no press, no recordings. He could have embarrassed us publicly, but he didn't. Not yet. Rita scoffed. Yet. Grant turned to face her fully. You really want to gamble that he'll stay quiet if we twist the story? She hesitated. Pause. For a moment, doubt flickered behind her eyes. But pride, hurt pride, pushed back. We can't just hand him our throats, she said. We need to protect ourselves too. Grant's shoulders slumped. He was tired. Tired of pretending everything was fine. Tired of sweeping complaints under the rug. Tired of playing both sides. We protect ourselves, he said slowly, by telling the truth now, completely. Before someone forces us to. Rita opened her mouth, then closed it again. She turned away, breathing hard. Outside, the SUV glided back into the lot and came to a smooth stop. Marcus cut the engine and opened the door, stepping out with the same calm composure he'd walked in with. Tyler followed. So, what did you think? He asked weakly. Nice ride, Marcus said. Handles well. Not sure I like the way it looks on the outside, though. Tyler laughed nervously. Fair enough. They walked back into the dealership. Every head turned again. Grant was waiting near the center of the showroom, posture stiff, hands folded in front of him. Mr. Daniels, he said carefully. Could we speak in my office for a moment? Marcus agreed with a small nod. All right. They entered the office. Grant closed the door quietly behind them, leaving the noise of the showroom outside, like another world. Rita was already inside, sitting in a chair against the wall. She looked smaller now, not in size, but in presence. Grant gestured toward a seat. Please, have a seat. Marcus sat. He didn't slouch. He didn't lean forward aggressively. He just settled, controlled, present. Grant sat across from him, fingers interlocked. Mr. Daniels, he began. I won't waste your time. I know what happened today was unacceptable, and I know what you could do with that information. Marcus watched him quietly. But I also know something else, Grant continued. You gave us a chance. You didn't storm out. You didn't call the news. You didn't film the interaction for millions of views. You chose to stay, to listen, to test whether we're capable of change. He took a deep breath. I want you to know, I heard you. Marcus tilted his head slightly. Did you? Grant nodded. Yes, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending this was a one-time mistake. There have been complaints. We didn't address them seriously. That's on me, not just her. Grant continued. We will be documenting what happened today honestly. No creative edits. No blaming you. No twisting. Just the truth. Rita stared at him in disbelief. You're just going to hand him everything? I'm going to stop lying to myself, Grant replied quietly. He looked back at Marcus. Whatever report you file, whatever comes afterwards, I won't fight it with lies. Marcus studied him. The sincerity wasn't perfect, but it was real enough to matter. And her, Marcus asked, nodding toward Rita. Grant hesitated. She'll be facing consequences. Rita spoke for the first time. So I'm just a sacrifice now? Marcus turned his head toward her. No, you're an example. She narrowed her eyes. Of what? Failure? Of what happens when we think we can treat people however we want without consequences, he said softly. Of what happens when someone finally refuses to let it slide. Her lip trembled slightly. You still have a choice, he added. You can learn from this. Or you can hate me for it. Only one of those helps you in the long run. The room went quiet. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Grant broke the silence. Is there anything you want to request, Mr. Daniels? Anything specific you expect from us? Marcus thought about it. No staged PR campaigns, he said finally. No fake apology posts. No damage control to make you look like heroes for learning after being forced to. Grant nodded. Instead, Marcus continued, you do the work. You retrain your staff. You review the old complaints. You stop letting this kind of behavior live in the shadows. He leaned back. And when I file my report, I'll mention that I saw remorse. But I'll also mention whether I saw follow-through. Grant absorbed that slowly. You'll be watching us? Marcus gave a small, meaningful nod. Yes. Rita looked away, blinking back emotion she didn't expect to feel. Grant sighed deeply, like he was finally exhaling years of silent avoidance. Then we'll give you something worth writing, he said. Marcus stood. The meeting wasn't warm. It wasn't friendly, but it was honest, more honest than anything that had been said in that office in a long time. He reached for the door. Both Grant and Rita watched him, knowing that whatever came after this day would be shaped by the man walking out of that room. They had tried to bury their mistake. Instead, they had unearthed the truth. And now, they couldn't pretend they didn't see it. The sky outside had darkened by the time Marcus pulled into his driveway. The dealership's fluorescent lights still buzzed behind his eyes. But it wasn't the building that weighed on him. It was everything inside it. People didn't change overnight. Systems definitely didn't change overnight. But sometimes, one moment cracked the surface enough for truth to slip through. Marcus stepped inside his house, closed the door, and let out a long breath. The silence was grounding, familiar, honest in ways people often weren't. He placed his keys on the table and walked to his desk. There was no music, no distractions, just a soft lamp illuminating a blank document waiting on his computer screen. Tonight wasn't about anger. Tonight was about accuracy. He sat down, cracked his knuckles softly, and began typing. Incident evaluation, behavior review, staff conduct, previous reports, patterns of profiling, management in action. He didn't write emotionally. He didn't exaggerate. He simply wrote the truth as it happened, precise, detailed, unshakable. Every sentence added weight. Every paragraph sharpened accountability. He paused only once, staring at the line describing how the two security officers stepped forward on command. That's the part that scares people the most, he thought. When authority becomes a tool instead of a responsibility. He resumed writing. An hour passed. Then another. By midnight, the report was complete, thorough but fair, direct but not vindictive. It documented everything that mattered and ignored everything that didn't. Before sending it, he reviewed it one more time. Every detail felt heavy but necessary. He clicked submit. A quiet chime sounded. His report was officially filed. He leaned back slowly, letting the silence wrap around him again. Tomorrow, the dealership would receive it. Tomorrow, the chain reaction would begin. Meanwhile, back at the dealership, the building was mostly dark, except for the office at the back, where Grant sat hunched over his computer. His tie was loosened, his coat hung on the back of his chair, and his face looked years older than it had that morning. Rita sat in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the floor. Her mascara smudged slightly around her eyes, not from tears, but from exhaustion. Grant rubbed his forehead with both hands. He's sending the report tonight, he muttered. Rita didn't respond. You know what that means, he said again. Still nothing. Grant stood, pacing. It means corporate will get it by morning. It means this location is going to be audited. It means everything we've been avoiding is coming to the surface. Rita squeezed her arms tighter. Is he going to mention me by name? Grant gave her a hollow look. He doesn't need to. The footage alone will. Rita blinked sharply, her breath catching. But I wasn't trying to. Grant cut her off. Intent doesn't matter anymore, Rita. Impact does. She shook her head. I'm not a bad person. I didn't say you were, he replied quietly. But you made bad choices, and we let those choices happen again and again. Rita looked up at him, anger and fear all tangled together. So that's it? My career is just over? Grant sighed. That depends on you, and what you do next. Her expression twisted. Meaning? Meaning you own what you did, Grant said. You face it. You stop looking for excuses and learn from it. And end from there. Rita stared at him, something fragile flickering behind her eyes. But neither of them said another word. End from there. The next morning came too fast. The dealership wasn't normal chaos. It was quiet chaos. Phones rang more often. Whispers floated between desks like nervous birds. And Collins, the security officer, stood at his post but kept glancing toward the manager's office, waiting for something, anything, to happen. At 9:13 a.m., Grant's email beeped. He clicked it. The room seemed to tilt. The audit notification was official. Immediate review. Mandatory interviews. Request for surveillance footage. Formal complaint logged. He swallowed hard. Rita appeared in his doorway. Is it here? Grant turned his monitor slightly so she could see. Her face fell. It's worse than I thought, she whispered. Grant nodded. Yes, but it's not the end. Not if we cooperate fully. She rubbed her forehead. What did he say? In the report? Grant hesitated. Then he printed a copy and handed it to her without speaking. She read slowly. Very slowly. With every paragraph, her posture sank deeper. The line about her initial approach. The command she gave the officers. The assumed threat where there wasn't one. The pattern of previous complaints. The recommendation for training and oversight. Her voice cracked when she reached the end. He didn't lie about anything. No, Grant said softly. He didn't. And he didn't call me names or blame me. He just wrote, what happened? That's what people like him do, Grant replied. They give facts, not revenge. Rita closed her eyes tightly, shoulders trembling, not from humiliation this time, but from the realization of what she'd become without ever noticing. I messed up badly, she whispered. Yeah, Grant said, but you can fix this. You just have to start by telling the truth. At home, Marcus stood on his porch sipping coffee. The morning air was cool, peaceful, clean. He had no regrets about the report. None. He didn't write it to destroy anyone's life. He wrote it to stop patterns from repeating. He set his mug down and checked his phone. A message blinked from an unknown number. We received the report. Thank you for your honesty and professionalism. We will handle this. He locked the screen and pocketed the phone. Not everything in life needed a dramatic ending. Sometimes endings were quiet. Sometimes justice wasn't loud. It just happened silently behind closed doors. He stepped off his porch and walked to his truck. He had errands to run. A life to return to. Not defined by today. Not controlled by anyone's expectations. But there was still one more thing to conclude. Because sooner or later, a final conversation would happen. One last truth needed to be spoken. And that conversation, that final shift, was coming whether the dealership was ready or not. Marcus climbed into his truck, turned the engine, and drove away. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence. 3 days of tension flickering through the dealership like electricity trapped in the walls. Corporate hadn't just responded to Marcus's report. They moved fast. Faster than Grant expected. Faster than Rita prayed for. They ordered a full internal review. Mandatory interviews with staff. Anonymous surveys. A request for unedited surveillance footage from the past 3 months. A diversity and conduct audit. And worst of all for the dealership, an unannounced visit. No one knew when it would happen, only that it would. Grant tried to hold things together. Rita showed up every day, visibly shaken but determined to keep her head down. Collins, the security officer, acted more professional than usual, clearly wanting to distance himself from the incident. Tyler stayed quiet, watching everything unfold with wide eyes, young enough to learn, old enough to understand that moments like this carve the future of a workplace. By the morning of the 4th day, the dealership felt heavy, like a storm waiting for the first crack of thunder. At 10:07 a.m., that thunder arrived. The glass doors slid open, and Marcus Daniels walked in. But not in a hoodie, not in casual clothes. Today, he wore a crisp button-down, clean-cut jacket, and calm authority that required no badge to announce itself. Every head turned, every whisper died. Even the hum of the AC felt quieter. Marcus stepped onto the glossy showroom floor with the measured ease of someone who didn't come to threaten, but came to finish what he started. Grant emerged from his office like he'd been waiting in the shadows all morning. "Mr. Daniels," he said, voice tight but respectful. "We weren't expecting you." "I know," Marcus said softly. "I'm not here for an inspection. I'm here for a conclusion." Grant blinked, thrown off. "A conclusion?" "Yes," Marcus said, "but not the one you think." Behind Grant, several employees peeked around corners. Rita stood frozen near a desk, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Marcus glanced briefly at her, not with cruelty, but with clarity. He turned back to Grant. "Let's talk in your office." Grant nodded and led the way. Inside the office, Rita sat in the chair against the wall. Marcus took the seat opposite Grant. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Grant swallowed. "Before anything else, I want to say thank you." "For what?" Marcus asked. "For being fair," Grant said quietly. "For writing a report that tells the truth without attacking us personally." Marcus didn't respond. He simply waited. Marcus continued. "Corporate reached out. They're doing a full investigation. They asked us for incident logs, past complaints, staff behavior reports, all of it." Marcus said. "They informed me." Rita looked up sharply. "They're keeping you updated?" Marcus nodded. "That's standard when a federal report triggers an internal review." Rita blinked rapidly. So what did they say?" Marcus turned his head toward her. "They said the dealership is cooperating." "That's good. I'm trying," she whispered. He studied her for a moment. The arrogance she had when he first walked in was gone. Not faked, not staged, gone. "What did you learn from all this?" he asked. Rita flinched. "That I made assumptions, bad ones, and that I let my stress and pride get in the way of basic decency." Grant looked away, ashamed. Rita continued softly, voice cracking. "I didn't realize how harmful my behavior was. Not just the day you walked in. Before that too. I thought I was being cautious. But now I see, I was just being biased." The room fell quiet. She swallowed hard. "I'm not proud of who I was in that moment. But I'm trying to change before that becomes the person I stay." Marcus nodded slowly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't exaggerated. It was honest. "I appreciate that," Marcus said quietly. Grant exhaled, relieved. Rita wiped the corner of her eye. Are you going to push for my termination? Marcus leaned back slightly. No, he said. She gasped softly. Grant froze. No, Marcus repeated. Firing you doesn't fix the system. It just hides the problem by removing one person. Rita stared at him, stunned. I didn't file that report to destroy anyone, Marcus continued. I filed it so things change. So this place becomes better for the next person who walks through the door, no matter what they look like. Grant looked away, overwhelmed. Rita covered her mouth, struggling to breathe evenly. Marcus stood. I'm not here for revenge, he said. I'm here so this doesn't happen again. Grant rose slowly. We're committed to that. Marcus nodded. Good. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it gently on Grant's desk. A letter. Grant looked confused. What's this? Marcus spoke calmly. A signed clarification statement for corporate. It says that although the incident was serious, you and your staff handled the aftermath responsibly. Grant's jaw dropped. You wrote this? Yes. You didn't have to, Grant said, voice trembling. Marcus nodded. I know, I chose to. Rita burst into tears, quiet, fragile, exhausted tears. Not from fear this time, from relief. Marcus gave her a soft glance. Not pity, not sympathy, just understanding. Then he stepped toward the door. Thank you for listening, he said simply. And thank you for giving us another chance, Grant whispered. Marcus paused. You earned it by facing the truth. And with that, he left the office. Outside in the showroom, employees watched him walk past. Not with fear now, with respect. Collins gave him a small nod. Tyler smiled warmly. A few others lowered their heads in a gesture that said thank you without speaking. Marcus walked toward the exit, calm, steady, complete. He didn't buy a car. He didn't need one. He came for something bigger than a vehicle. He came for accountability, for growth, for change. And he had achieved it. If you found this story powerful, emotional, or meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps bring more cinematic narratives and life-changing moments to the channel. Remember, real strength isn't loud, it's calm, steady, and honest. More stories coming soon.